It's up to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Bill, for those remarks. That video was incredible. Now I feel like we have two celebrities here with us. You get to see them live and in the flesh. So I am very, very excited to be up on stage here moderating this conversation with Dave and Maya. As you heard, I've been an Echoing Green Fellow, I've been on staff, I'm now a board member, and so I've had the chance to look up to the two of them for quite some time. So this is really quite an honor to get to share the stage with both of you. So as you heard, Dave was there pretty much from the beginning. So we are here celebrating 35 years of Echoing Green, but take us back 35 years. Take us back to those first conversations and what it was like to get this organization off the ground.
Well, thankfully, my memory is failing, so I can make up a lot of this if I want to. But the idea behind Echoing Green really flowed out of some things you've already heard in the video, and one of them was that our firm, General Atlantic, was formed by one of the most extraordinary philanthropists of all time, and Chuck Feeney. And I think, like all, sort of proud children, we decided we better do something philanthropic as well, because he was an inspiring person to work for, and we felt we had our own responsibility to do something like that. We were investors in innovative companies in the private sector, mainly technology companies, and we thought it would be relatively straightforward to just transfer that skill over to the social sector and find young social innovators that we could back. It turned out to be a little more complicated than that, but the idea was so simple that I think it's persisted for 35 years as an incredibly powerful idea. It attracts everybody who's part of the Echoing Green community. They kind of get that, and I think that was fundamental to the starting point. The second piece of it was not so obvious, and this I give Ed Cohen full credit for, who was our CEO at General Atlantic at the time. But he was convinced that an important aspect of this was going to be creating a community, because betting on innovative people is understandable, but it's a very lonely process to be an innovator. It's lonely in the private sector. It is probably 5 times lonelier in the social sector. And if we didn't provide the support of a community, the probability of success would go down. Now, I'm not sure I would have thought of that idea, but it was fundamental to what Echoing Green became. And I think as we talk about the community, the ecosystem, the way that we support fellows, not only through their own brilliant ideas and hard work, but also through this community of support, it was probably the most important part of that starting point for Echoing Green.
Yeah, I love that insight. I mean, I think if you talk to any of us who are fellows, you'll probably hear some version of that the money, of course, is necessary, but the community is what keeps you going. So Maya, you were on the other side. So talk to us about what it was like to kind of find Echoing Green, to become an Echoing Green Fellow, and then to enter that community.
So let me start with the idea, right? It was the Global Fund for Children. I got a fellowship that allowed me to travel from Thailand to Pakistan, and I was in India at a trained platform school, and I saw an extraordinary social innovator on the ground teaching children at a trained platform, kids who lived on and around a trained platform but could not go to school, and she brought the school to the trained platform. And it was there, I thought, how do we help, and how come I don't see more trained platforms schools all over India? In today's jargon, it's how do you get small amounts of capital into really innovative grassroots organizations, and how do you make them scalable and sustainable? I had my moment of obligation, that's what I call it, and I found this incredible organization called Echoing Green, and I wrote up my 4-page proposal, and I said that I wanted to start the Global Fund for Children, but I also wanted to start a children's book publishing venture that would teach children in this country about diversity, equity, and inclusion, about the global village that we live in. And I got an interview, and I was so scared. Dave, you were sitting right here, like right next to me 30 years ago. I was 23 years old, and I had Ed Cohen, Diana Proper-Callion, who's the first Echoing Green Fellow, and Dr. Robert Coles, the child psychiatrist. And they asked me questions no one had ever asked me. I left that interview thinking, there's no way. There's no way. But 4 days later, I got a call and they said, you have $100,000 in seed capital. And I really believe in this idea of a hallucinogenic optimism. I was hallucinogenic. I still am, I think. And that's how I got involved, but it was more than just the money, it was the community. I had found my people. And finding your people is a very rare thing. And I'm very, very fortunate to have found my people in Echoing Green, but also now the community I lead today.
Maya knows this, but Lori and I read her books to our son, John, who's autistic, for years and years and years. They were the staple of our evening activities with him. And what she created in the early days of Global Fund for Children outstripped anybody's expectations of what could have happened there. And I think it's just a classic example of how profoundly amazing Echoing Green Fellows are.
I just also want to just say something of leading an organization for 18 years. There's nothing more beautiful than to revel in the fact that when you leave an organization, it does even bigger and better things than what you could have ever imagined. And tonight, I think the CEO of Global Fund for Children is here, John Hecklinger. John, are you here? And I just have to say this, and then I'll be quiet. Today, on the ride up, I got a text from John, and it was the most incredible text I had ever read. And John, it's yours to share. So what I mean is about reveling in the joy of an organization you've built, and you go, dag, I was 23 years old when I built that. And now it's even doing bigger and better things. That's really gratifying. Sorry.
No, there's no need to apologize. This is why we have you up here. But I think this is actually sort of the central theme that we're talking about is the distance traveled. And here, 35 years into Echoing Green, looking back to the founding, and then looking at where we are now. Dave, you've been involved for a long time. So I would love for you to share just some of your reflections on where Echoing Green is now and how that compares to what you all were thinking about in those early days.
I think a piece that's often overlooked about Echoing Green's journey is that it has also been the journey of social entrepreneurship. And at the time that Echoing Green was founded, it was a pretty unusual idea to make grants to small fledgling organizations run by young and often very young entrepreneurs without a track record of success. I think today that is a given. It's a sine qua non to how you fund social innovation in the United States and increasingly around the world. So that journey has been an amazing one. And I think we've been beneficiaries of that at Echoing Green because I think more people get it and want to be supporters of Echoing Green because of that. But we've also been leaders of that change, and it's been really important. I give Cheryl 100% of the credit for having been a tireless voice in the community, in the philanthropic community, about how important that has been. We've had to learn a lot internally. We've had to learn how to find proximate leaders, as we describe them, but to find people where they live, who are living with problems, who don't know how to find us, who aren't going to find us unless we find them, and who deserve and require that kind of support. And we didn't do that well in the early years, but we do it extraordinarily well now, and I think we're going to do it better and better as time goes on.
I think that point about funding someone without a track record and the point about centering proximity are in some ways the same thing. It's a different version of a track record to have lived live the issue and live the problem, and that just wasn't recognized for an extremely long time. And I totally agree, Echoing Green was an absolute pioneer in that. And so both of you have selected Echoing Green Fellows over the years. And as we heard, Dave helped select Maya, so good job. But I would love for each of you to just spend a minute talking about what it's actually like to be in that judging room, and maybe share a story or two of your experiences selecting fellows. You can go in either order.
Do you want to take it? Go for it.
I have a reputation. You know Cheryl, right? People think I'm really tough. I actually think I'm really nice, but
She's tough.
I'm really interested in what makes people tick. Why are you doing the work that you're doing? That is what's really interesting to me. I mean, if you look at even in my journey with Global Fund for Children and now leading the Society for Science, there's this, thread of working with young people, searching for talent, searching for innovation. And I'm really interested in this idea of, with Echoing Green Fellows, why are you sitting at this table? Why do you want to solve this problem? Forget about scale, forget about technology, forget about all of it. What is it in your soul that's driving you to do this work? And there's usually a very deep story that's driving it. And in my interview, Bob Coles got to the deep of that pretty clearly. Growing up in Eastern North Carolina, he had asked me, what was it like growing up there? Nobody had ever asked me that. And that was what was driving my energy around the children's books and publishing venture, but also the Global Fund for Children. And so I think about Raj Punjabi, who founded Last Mile Health. He had his vision is community-based health workers. Raj is now in the White House, informing policy, right? But Raj, I remember, was really, had a very sliver of an idea and just blew it up. But he had a story about being a refugee from Liberia, coming to North Carolina and wanting to give back to the country that he left. That's what got me. I said, we gotta fund him.
It's amazing. I think one of the really interesting pivot points was when we concluded that it made sense to fund partners beginning organizations. And it's kind of tricky to interview partners. I've lived in a partnership my entire professional life, and they're unique beings. And understanding how partners are going to interact with each other. We had a question in the early going as to whether we should interview them separately or together, for instance. And it was fascinating to see that dynamic play out. We talked earlier about community and some of the challenges facing our democracy. One of them is this concept that if we're going to be members of the same community, we have to agree on everything. And we've seen that play out in our political lives in this country recently with disastrous effect. What I had learned about partnership and what I looked for in interviewing partners was the ability to disagree on important issues of substance, but share the same values. And it's defined the firm that I've worked for 40 years. It's defined Echoing Green partnerships. It's defined the Echoing Green community. We're not all like-minded. We don't all believe the same thing. We don't all have the same points of view about specific issues. But we share this common value about community and the importance of our service to other people. And in that, we could ask the question of partners. Will they stick it out? Will they be able to live through those moments when they disagree with one another? When maybe one takes the ascendancy, which often happens in partnerships. And that sort of unlocked the ability to really understand partnerships and how they were going to work.
So I feel like so much of what each of you is describing, not in so many words, so I'm going to ask you to put it in so many words, is what is the special thing about the Echoing Green community? And what is it, when you think about what it sort of looks, feels, smells like to be with Echoing Green, and how this community sticks with and supports. I mean, we heard in the video that this is a community that inspires people to keep going when it seems like they can't, which is wildly powerful. What is it about the Echoing Green community that does that and serves that role for people?
Well, I'll start, but you two are fellows. You should answer this question. But I'll start by saying we all understand how hard the work is for each of us. And I'd say this about my business colleagues as well. I get how hard their job is every day and how agonizing it is to go through that and have to make really tough decisions every day. And if you don't respect that and want to support that every day, you're missing something. You know, that's why you love this community, because everybody's working so hard in honor of the service they're doing to others. You have to support them. Whether you disagree with them on specific points isn't important. It's the joint love of the mission that brings you together. But you guys should answer.
I would say we're in a room together to solve the world's most intractable problems. And there are many, many different ways to do that. And we have to, and every single person in the Echoing Green community is doing it. And I will also say something, sometimes things don't work. That is part of innovation, and we learn a lot by things that don't work. I now lead a scientific institution called the Society for Science, and science is all about that. A lot of things don't work, but they keep giving you more and more answers. I would also say talent is another piece of this. It is extraordinary to be in a room of such diverse talent and viewpoints, and you don't find that very often. And then again, I'll just say this, Laura, you and I can say it, we found our people. We found our people. And when you find your people, it's hard to not be part of that community forever.
I remember feeling such a sense of relief when I joined the Echoing Green community for both of these reasons. One is people understood finally how hard it was. And two is I felt like I found my people. And coming to Echoing Green gatherings has, I mean, I'll show up anywhere that Echoing Green asks me, literally. It's a very, very special community. Okay, so for our final question, we are 35 years in, so let's project out another 35 years. We'll probably all be doing this in virtual reality or something, but give us your hopes for Echoing Green for the next 35 years.
One of the most important actors in social change is government. And my hope is that 35 years from now, there is such a tight symbiotic relationship between what we're doing at Echoing Green as the innovation laboratory and what government is gobbling up as the kinds of programs that need to be supported, enhanced, and rolled out, that impact we're having today gets amplified 100-fold.
Well, I would say that with the fellowship community is that there are fellows everywhere, in all countries, in every state, in every region, solving local problems, state problems, national problems, global problems, and then taking what Dave said, having government be the partner to scale that work, to influence policy, that maybe one of our Echoing Green fellows someday will become president.
That's a good one. Good. So I just want to thank you both so much, both for sitting up here on this stage and sharing, but also for absolutely everything you've done for the Echoing Green community, for the people who are in this room. The organization and the community truly would not be the same without both of you, and we're just so thrilled to have you with us. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.